button I was supposed to hit, right? This.
Yep, we are going. There's our audio appearing, so...
You're all out of frame.
I gotta lean in a little more because the leg's right here. Okay. Now I'm in frame. Hello. Do you want to start out?
Like, with the introduction?
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm Rena McMonigal.
I'm Peter.
And this is Spook History.
Second episode.
You sound bored.
Oh. I'm not. I'm still getting my camera voice down.
So, yeah, episode 2. Little bit of a break between episode 1 and episode 2 for us, because my parents were here for a whole week.
Mm-hmm. We had to make the apartment look like it's a place that guests come over and not just a giant studio to record things in.
Like a crazy heap of like 1,000 artistic projects happening all at once, which is usually what it looks like. So we had to pretend that we were capable adults with our lives together there for 1 week.
Mm-hmm.
We made it.
I think we did a good job of fooling them.
Mom, Dad, I'm joking. Just kidding. They'll never see this. Yeah, but ironically, after the first episode and talking about that monolith thing at the Parthenon in Nashville, that is exactly where we ended up last week.
I mean, there's only so many places to take people in Nashville when they don't want to go to Broadway, so...
Yeah, I had just forgotten that it was there, and I already forgot that man's name, who's like...
James Robertson.
Bringing the civilized world or something. I forgot what he thought he was doing.
He's got the parkway named after him. Was it James Robertson Parkway?
Is that his name?
Yeah.
It's just such a boring name. I'm just like, this...
After.
It just blends into the background.
Yeah, it's not... Yeah.
Fun fact, on the other side of that monument, it talks about his wife and credits her with giving birth to the first male in Tennessee. And I'm just mad about it.
We don't remember the person who gave birth to the first female in Tennessee. They don't get a monument. They should have tried harder if they wanted to be remembered by history.
It's just such a blow to just everyone, to just... Not only is she only remembered for her contributions as, like, a host, but just because she gave birth to a male.
Mm-hmm.
I hate it so much. Oh, James, you suck.
And for being James's wife, yeah.
Damn it, James. The worst.
Did she do anything on her own other than associate with men? I don't know.
We'll never know. No one remembers stuff like that.
Who knows? So what's up for episode 2, then?
Our theme this week is Kentucky, which is
Great
horrifying.
White North.
So the Great White Kentucky, the Great White North. What?
From here in Nashville, at least.
There's a lot going on in Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
A lot happening.
Mm-hmm.
Kentucky's a little terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
I say this as a person who has spent a considerable number of weekends in Kentucky for various film projects. And now I have a bunch of friends in southern Kentucky. So I'm there a lot.
I should check in on them, see how they're doing.
Oh, I think they're doing good.
Make sure they didn't fall into a sinkhole.
Oh, God, you...
I joke about that, but that's a legitimate fear.
I don't want to talk about it. When I was looking up hauntings in Kentucky, there's a lot. And there's a lot of, like, just weird ones. And Kentucky just... I don't know, crossing into Kentucky, like, feels weird. Like, you're very noticeably in a different place than northern Tennessee.
Yeah, that part of Kentucky, like, it kind of starts... It's technically a southern state, but it kind of, like, starts to feel a little bit Midwestern-ish. Like...
Yeah, Louisville is very Midwestern.
But then... And yet, like, still very southern.
I disagree.
It's, like, right across the river from Indiana, but, like, I also forget that, like, eastern Kentucky... Like, because we never go to eastern Kentucky, and that whole part of the state that's, like, coal country,
Yeah.
Which, actually, that came up in the things I was looking up, too.
Good. I don't know that much. I know I've been to Louisville a lot, and I've been to Bowling Green a lot, and then I've been to a bunch of, like, middle of nowhere rural places to go to, like, indie film projects in Kentucky, where I probably should have been more careful because I could have very easily just been murdered and
Abducted by aliens.
and thrown into a sinkhole. Yeah, aliens is another problem in Kentucky. They've got, like, satanic forest, they've got aliens, they've got sinkholes. It's a mess up there.
Oh, I don't know about the satanic forests.
Oh, well, that's not what I'm covering today, but we'll, I guess we'll get to that. There's some weird stuff happening up in Kentucky.
You alright, Kentucky?
No.
Blink twice if you need help.
I'm stalling because I don't want to talk about my thing.
We can do mine first.
I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about yours either. I don't like sinkholes and I don't like caves. I don't like it. Yeah, there's a lot of hauntings and creepy paranormal things happening in Kentucky, but probably one of the most classic haunted sites is the Waverly Hills Sanatorium.
I heard me of that place.
Yeah, moving here, I did not know that much about it. And now I know way too much. And I have run into a lot of people who have been there, who grew up near, who have, like, horrifying stories from that place. Like, very trustworthy people. And I just run into them. Like, when we were visiting a friend in New York, her roommate is from that area. And the first thing she says is, Waverly Hills is haunted.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
yeah,
you cannot talk to someone from northern Kentucky without them just being like, okay, but Waverly Hills. Which other places have hauntings, but they are not as passionate as the people of Louisville are about Waverly Hills, which is unnerving. I freaked myself out with my research. I was a little panicked last night. I had to turn on Schitt's Creek because I freaked myself out. So maybe I'll scare you today, or I'll just scare myself again. We'll see.
Sometimes, when you turn on the television, I just think you're doing it because you need background noise to, like, help you focus.
No, I freaked myself out reading some of the stories, and then the neighbors came home, and I guess they did something in their closet, because all of a sudden I just heard this long, like, scratch go down the wall, and I freaked out. But I'm going to assume it was just the neighbors in the closet doing, I don't know, I guess they were scratching at it. I don't know. Without further ado, the Waverly Hills Sanatorium. I'm going to start with all of the history, or a good chunk of the history of Waverly Hills, and then get into the creepy stuff. But the history is pretty horrifying as well. The Waverly Hills Sanatorium is considered to be the most haunted location in the world, and it is located southwest of Louisville. It opened in 1910, and it was originally a 2-story hospital meant to treat a maximum of 40 to 50 tuberculosis patients. It opened in 1910, and
It's okay.
It opened in 1910, and it was... I can't talk.
I liked the last sound that you did, though, but the like that was.
I'm cutting that
did
out.
Like that. No,
I'm cutting
that
out. No one wants to hear that. It's too early to be this weird.
It's never too early to be weird.
It opened in 1910 and was originally a 2-story hospital meant to treat a maximum of 40 to 50 tuberculosis patients. Why can't I say tuberculosis?
You did say it. You're not trying to say tuberculosis? Tuberculosis.
I'm gonna get through this sentence. Hang on.
Can we please keep this?
I don't want to. It's too early.
I love this. This is great.
Shut up. It's too early. No one wants to hear this.
But you're so tuberculousness to getting it. I'm sorry.
I'm so mad at you. It opened in 1910 and was originally a 2-story hospital meant to treat a maximum of 40 to 50 consumption patients.
It's cheating.
Tuberculosis is a bacterial infection that attacks and slowly eats away at the lungs. It was a global health concern in the 1800s and into the early 1900s, and some years it was responsible for as many as 1 in 4 deaths. This was a major and deadly problem for a very long time, and because of the humidity in Louisville, it was kind of the perfect breeding ground for the bacteria, so they had a major outbreak in the early 1900s. So much so that by 1912, the tuberculosis outbreak in Louisville was so bad that patients were transferred to the facility and had to live in tents on the grounds while they waited for an additional wing of the hospital for advanced cases to be completed.
What do they mean by advanced cases to be? Do they mean they waited until those people died? Is that what they mean?
Yeah, I mean, those would be like severe infections of the lungs. Like it would, because, sometimes tuberculosis can take quite a while to kill you. So those would be, the more terminal patients. At this time, they had 140 patients. That addition was completed by the end of that year and added another 40 beds, which still isn't really enough because they could only have 50 beds and they have 140 patients. Yeah. So their people are getting sick faster than they can find space for them.
Yeah.
By 1914, a children's facility was completed. It included an additional 50 beds. The children who lived at Waverly Hills were sometimes the children of tuberculosis patients who had nowhere else to go, as well as children who were infected with tuberculosis. So because tuberculosis is very contagious and it is airborne, basically all the children, the healthy children who were sent there because their parents couldn't take care of them, basically they were just everyone's getting infected because that's how it works.
It's crazy because, they didn't fully know how to treat it at the time, but they knew it was airborne. That's why the people went to, Asheville, North Carolina, was because they thought the air was clean there.
Yeah, but it's the early 1900s, and they're not gonna...
they
don't care about the children. What?
I was gonna say, that's crazy. The science was advanced enough at that time to know that. Yeah.
Yeah, they were essentially committing those children to die in that hospital by deciding to send them there rather than finding care for them. The intention was to build a new building each year to continually grow the hospital, but the tuberculosis epidemic was so bad that it quickly became obsolete. So construction on the 5-story structure that we know today started in 1924, and it finally opened in 1926. I don't know if they had patients just living in tents on the grounds for the majority of that 10 years, but so like we said earlier, if you have tuberculosis, it's airborne, and they knew that. So once you were at Waverly Hills, you were quarantined, which means Waverly Hills was its own community. It had its own water treatment plant, it grew its own food, raised its own animals, had its own post office, and even its own zip code. So whether you were a patient, the child of a patient, a doctor, a nurse, if you went there, you were not leaving. You lived there, that's it. You're committing to be there.
So it's like a cult compound without the cult.
Yes, it's like a cult compound, but with horrifying disease.
Yeah, with no cult leader, just disease. Okay.
It's a weird way to put it, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, you go there, you grow your own food, and you don't get to leave.
Yeah, it's pretty horrifying. It's little prison-y. By 1938, tuberculosis was the leading cause of death in Kentucky. Kentucky had the highest tuberculosis death rate in the country.
I did not know that.
Yeah, there were a lot of people ending up at Waverly, and a lot of times the treatment was kind of torturous and horrifying. So treatments included lots of rest, fresh air, and the fresh air was no matter the weather conditions. So even in the dead of winter, they were just throwing open all the windows, putting a blanket on them, and just sitting them in the fresh air. There was also the theory that ultraviolet light would stop the spread of bacteria. So they had sunrooms where they would use artificial light to try and kill it with UV rays.
Like outside of their body or on the inside?
No, I don't think they were outside. I think they just had
Okay.
sunrooms and it was basically like a tanning bed, but...
I mean, because ultraviolet radiation killing, like bacteria and virus, that is
But like
something,
not in your lungs.
yeah.
Yeah, it's in your lungs. It's not. It's a weird theory. It's grounded in something, but like it's a weird plan. In advanced cases, they would also remove ribs of the patients to allow the lungs more room, theoretically. Which sometimes they would be removing 6 to 8 ribs. They would also be removing parts of the infected parts of the lung to let the organ rest, which is not. It's just my lungs hurt thinking about this. There was also.
Did this ever work? Like, was there a patient whose like ribs they took out, and this patient lived? I'm just curious. Like,
I found cases where they're like, we cured it, and they went home, but I don't know. I didn't find a lot of information about that.
that's wild. Like, how do you
don't
go
like it.
about your life
It's a lot of ribs.
without ribs?
It's a lot of ribs.
Like, how do you proceed to lift an object? You know, like, how do you, without that structural framework around your core, like, how do you...
I don't know. I don't want to think about it. Like, my whole torso is twinging now. Okay. Another one is, and this was often a last resort because, no, the patients did not survive this one. Balloons would be surgically implanted in the lungs and then filled with air to expand them to help them breathe. No, that one didn't work. That was also, like, a last case, like, a last-ditch effort. Like, this person was going to die anyways, so...
Yeah.
I guess it made them feel like they were doing something, even though...
That one's rough. That one's got me squirming.
Yeah, don't stick anything in your lungs. Don't do it. So yeah, stuff. You know, if the disease isn't going to get you, the treatment is. Like, it's not good. So lots of horrifying things were happening. It's estimated that 8,000 people died at Waverly, but some indicates that number is higher. Some indicate that it's lower. There was a rumor going around for years that it was 60,000 people, which is...
That's a discrepancy.
That is, yeah, it is a huge discrepancy, but it's also just... That's a lot of people.
Yeah, it's nearly 7 times the difference.
So today they're thinking more between 6,000 and 8,000. I did find one that said 11,000 because the records just weren't that good. Either way, that's a lot of people. That's a ridiculous amount of people for a hospital that was originally meant to hold 50 people at a time.
Mm-hmm.
At the worst part of the epidemic, it was reported that a patient died nearly every hour. So because of this high death rate, they had to get creative with how they were removing bodies from the sanatorium. When the sanatorium was built, it included a tunnel that leads from the first floor to the bottom of a hill 500 feet away. It was originally intended to move supplies in and out of the building, but staff wanted a discreet way to remove the bodies of their deceased patients so that it would not hurt the morale of other residents. So that is how the tunnel became known as the death tunnel or the body chute. Just want to take some time to just imagine the logistics of moving a body from the 5th floor to the 1st floor to this death tunnel without anyone seeing.
Every hour?
Yeah. So I'm just like, just admit you were lazy. Like, they're gonna say that they had to move the bodies down the supply tunnel because they didn't want to hurt the morale, but they had to move them all the way through the hospital to get them to the tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like a wild claim to me.
Do they have like a specific like body elevator, like direct to morgue elevator?
Not that I found.
Okay. I mean, they must have taken them down by elevator that existed at the time, right?
Yeah.
So they must have been taking them down by elevator.
Yeah. But just, the patients would know.
Yeah,
the patients are gonna see it. So
you asked me to imagine the logistics of it.
Just saying that they put them down the chute rather than just taking them out the front door is so it wouldn't hurt the morale is a wild claim to me. After streptomycin was invented in 1943, it wasn't available at Waverly until 1949. Streptomycin was the antibiotic that would cure tuberculosis, which, again, want to take a moment to say, it took 100 years. Of this being a problem. It took 100 years to find a treatment, and then it would take even longer to find a preventative course.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't available in Kentucky for another 6 years. So it was in 1949 that cases of tuberculosis finally began to drop. So there was no longer a need for a 400-bed hospital. And by 1961, Waverly Hills Sanatorium was closed. But it was then rebranded and opened again in 1962 as Woodhaven Geriatric Center, a nursing home meant to specialize in dementia and mental illness in the elderly. However, it was overcrowded and understaffed. There were reports of neglect, abuse, and the use of experimental treatments. Woodhaven was closed by the state in 1982. So it did sit empty for a while. This is kind of a total aside. I just thought this was a really funny story. In March of 1996, Christ the Redeemer Foundation bought the property with plans to build the world's tallest statue of Jesus.
Were they trying to outdo Rio de Janeiro?
Yes! They were going to copy that statue.
Oh, really?
Yes,
they weren't going to make a new one?
They were going to copy it. Like, they were going to take, like, it's in all the articles. They were inspired by that statue. They were just going to straight up steal it and build a bigger one.
Man, okay.
Yeah. So the statue was going to sit on top of the hospital, and the hospital itself was going to be converted into a worship center with a theater and a gift shop.
Oh, wow.
They were going to need a total of $22 million for that project, which they said, no problem, we can raise that, and they got fundraising. They raised $3,000.
I mean, it's kind of hard to want to go worship somewhere that, was a sanatorium.
Yeah, it's filled with tuberculosis, and then it was basically like it sounds a little asylum-y after that. It wasn't ever claimed to be that, but fits the descriptions.
Yeah, it takes a lot of faith to still show up somewhere that used to be that place and just praise and not for a second be like, but why is the world so cruel? Like it would take a lot of faith.
But for needing $22 million and only raising $3,000, my heart and every student filmmaker who's ever been like, I just need $10,000 to make my dream project, and then they raise like 25. Yeah.
So it's not just you that has problems with the fundraising, apparently. Apparently statues have problems raising the funding too.
So from the early 1980s until 2001, the hospital sat empty, which is how it became kind of a legend in the surrounding area because, everyone was always breaking into it to look for ghosts and hang out, and teenagers were going to spray paints, and so it was kind of empty, but not for a while. So now we're going to get into the hauntings.
All right.
So there's two kind of theories and hauntings that come up in Waverly, which this might be a good one to introduce you to those concepts on. The first idea is kind of a theory of residual haunting, which is like a leftover energy, kind of like imprints through time, where you see or hear kind of a flashback to something that was, like the energy is imprinted on the space and keeps repeating itself.
Okay.
The other theory, and what people have experienced, is an intelligent haunting, which means that spirits or entities are actively interacting in real time. So that's like if you're getting an EVP and you're asking a question and they're answering, or you're asking something to them to move something and then it moves, like a call and response. So visitors to Waverly report hearing doors slam, seeing inexplicable lights, hearing voices, screaming, and footsteps. Near the kitchens, you can smell food and freshly baked bread, even though it hasn't been in working order in decades. One of the most common sightings that I came across is people will see a man in a white lab coat walking in the halls, even though there's not supposed to be anyone else in the building.
I'm gonna be honest, the one about the food would throw me the most, because just like that weird effect that you get when like you smell a candle and it smells like a food you would eat and you're like, I can't eat this is made of wax. I'd be like, there's nothing that I can eat here. Why do I smell something that makes me think about eating right now? It does not. Yeah, that would throw
especially
me.
when you look at how like dirty and like, so I emailed you some pictures. Go ahead and pull those up so you can be looking at those and as we do this.
There they are. I have 8 attachments.
One of the other famous ghosts at Waverly is the ghost of a little boy named Timmy. He is said to live on the 4th, or I guess live wouldn't be an incredibly disrespectful terminology. He's said to reside on the 4th floor. He's been spotted playing with a leather ball, and sometimes he'll roll balls down the hall of visitors. People have also reported seeing something crawling up the body chute towards them and then vanishing. That was the body chute taken in the daytime.
Yep, I just pulled that picture up.
Yeah, so just imagine looking down that in the middle of the night and seeing something crawling up it. Another common sighting is an elderly woman who's been spotted wandering the halls of the hospital, bleeding from chained ankles and wrists. She screams for help, but if you approach her, she runs from you in terror.
And what is this supposedly in reference to?
I do not know.
Oh, okay.
No further explanation.
Was Tiny Tim sorry, Tim.
Timmy.
Sorry, Timmy. Sorry, Timmy. Was he a tuberculosis patient?
I don't know. These are spirits that people have interacted with and named, but there's no like real concrete evidence as to who they may have been.
Okay.
On the 2nd and 3rd floors, you may encounter a little girl with no eyes running at you.
I'm counting floors right now on this exterior picture. Okay. Okay.
So, okay, if that's what you need to do.
I'm trying to visualize.
Imagine a little... Did you see the dark hallways?
Mm-hmm.
Just imagine seeing a little girl with no eyes running at you in that.
Yeah, no, I'm picturing it. It's weird.
Okay.
Oof.
Yeah, I'm going to get a reaction out of you one day. One of the more controversial stories comes out of room 502. So this is one of those that may have been fishtailed over time. Allegedly, the ghost of a nurse who died in 1928 has been spotted in room 502. According to the story, she was pregnant, and the father was one of the doctors who did not want to take responsibility for the baby, so she hung herself. Another version of the story is that the doctor tried to perform an abortion, but it went wrong, which resulted in her death. She was 29 years old. In 1932, another nurse who worked in room 502 jumped to her death, but some speculate that she was pushed. But there's no evidence to suggest either way. This is one of those things where I don't know if people just encountered a lot of activity in that room and then gave it a backstory, or if there was ever something that happened. There's a common theme with pregnancy and abortions that went wrong in Hauntings, which...
Yeah, I've heard a lot of those. It's like a trope kind of almost.
Yeah, like it's something that gets assigned in there as either a strange cautionary tale or I don't know. There's something feels icky about that always to me.
Yeah, because a lot of people die in a lot of traumatic ways, but I do hear a lot of stories about.
Yeah, there's a lot of that attributed to a lot of hauntings, especially in America. I will leave that there, but this is also maybe a good reason for access to proper health care. But also being 29, unmarried, and pregnant in a tuberculosis sanatorium that you're never allowed to leave, and knowing you have to raise a child in that, basically to catch tuberculosis is that's traumatizing. Like that's very upsetting.
Yeah.
That's quite a fate. Another one that may have just been kind of fishtailed. This is an urban legend that was been assigned to Waverly. Did not find evidence that it's true because it's messed up. So we're just gonna go with this is a fun urban legend that happened, but didn't. So one of the local urban legends involves two teenagers breaking in, coming across a homeless man and his dog. They murdered him in the name of Satan and threw his body down the body chute.
When did this supposedly happen?
91? I didn't write that down. I should have written it down. I believe it was in the 90s. It was before it was purchased and reopened in 2001. There's also a different version of the story where he fell down the body chute, but then everyone says, well, something probably pushed him. Mm-hmm. Either way, people do report encountering a ghost dog in that area. Waverly is also known for... these scare me. This is where we get to the scary part, or the part that scares me. So Waverly is also known for shadow figures. They are frequently reported and photographed. Some visitors claim that they can feel someone walking beside them, and they'll think it's the person that they came to the sanatorium with. Mm-hmm. And then later they'll realize that that person is farther up in the group or has stopped, and they'll turn to look, and the person who was next to them is gone. I found a blog post from the 90s where an explorer details the events of him and his friends doing a little urban exploring. They made their way up to the roof and checked everything out and kind of spent some time just reminiscing, telling each other stories about the things they had heard there. And then when they turned around and tried to go back into the 5th floor, they saw shadowy figures staring at them from the building, just emerging from the darkness, and no one had been there before. At this point, one of his friends loses his cool and wants to jump off the 5-story building to get away.
Oh, wow.
So they convince him that is not a good plan and that they have to go back the way that they have come, which means making their way through this pitch black, falling apart building with a bunch of figures.
How many of them were there?
At least 4.
Okay.
It didn't say exactly how many. So eventually they got up the nerve to go back inside and started slowly making their way through the dark hallways with the figures watching them. And then there was banging from the walls and the ceiling and the floor all around them. But they wanted to run to get back to the car as quickly as possible. But it was too dangerous because there's still equipment and debris, and they didn't have that much light. So they had to slowly make their way with what light they had back from the top of this building all the way back to the bottom with things watching them. By the time they got to the 4th floor, there was a loud crash and something landed in front of them. Something had thrown a brick at them.
See, if I was there and that happened to me, I'd immediately be concerned that there was someone like a flesh and body human there at that moment. That's what would immediately cross my mind. And I'd be like, why is this living human hanging out here? Are they up to no good? Like, could they possibly attack me and my friends? Like, I would, because, like when I've been in like abandoned buildings and like you can tell they've been occupied by other people. There's this one place that used to be like a pool house next to a lake. My friends and I went in there. Then one time we went in there and the floor is covered in needles. Ugh. Never went back there again because that's just not something to ever be around. Like,
oh, that's so dangerous.
Yeah. So I would immediately be concerned. I'd be like, is there someone in here like tripping out right now? Is there someone out in here like hiding because they've done something wrong? Like, yeah,
I feel like that would be a big concern there. But either way, living entity or not, this is the situation that they're in, and there's something watching them. So they did finally make it out. But I think that one friend who wanted to jump off the roof like freaked out and started just booking it towards like down the hall at one point. And they're like, "No, Chris, wait, come back."
He doesn't get invited to hang out with them when they go into abandoned buildings next time. He's like, "Oh, I saw you guys went to this place," and they're like, "No, we didn't." What? No. Another
commonly reported phenomenon. I hate this. I hate this so much. Are doppelgangers.
Like you see yourself?
Doppelgangers are an entity that can mimic the appearance of anyone it comes across, only with black eyes. So yes, you can see yourself.
Crazy.
I hate that. I hate that story. I hate it. So you'll see either yourself with black eyes or someone that... Oh God, I hate it.
Like someone you know, or like someone who's like in your group.
So yeah, like you would see, like you'd be there with your friends, and you would see them in a spot that they're not supposed to be. Only it's not them.
Like,
I hate that so much.
Or it'd be like horrifying if like you turn around a corner and you're like, "Dad."
Oh God, like, God, someone who's just not supposed to be there.
Yeah, someone w's like not even in your group. Just I'd be like, nope. I'd be gone.
I hate it.
Like, at least if it's someone in your group, you can be fooled long enough to like keep walking, then see them and be like, "Oh, I saw you down on the other hall," and they'd be like, "No, I never went down there." And then you'd be freaked out. But like, if it was someone who wasn't supposed to be in your group who was there, like that would
of it, all of it, I hate it. Like I hate it. I hate it so much. I hate it. I saw where the Ghost Adventures bros were there, and I don't think they caught it on camera, but one of them says that they saw themselves on that property. I'm just like, I can't.
It's crazy. Like,
I can't.
So you said it's you, but with black eye. Like, are there any other like distortions? Like, are you like dead and wrinkly or anything, or like?
No, I don't think so. I mean, there's a bunch of different versions of this, and this shows up a lot in like the darkest of cases. I don't know. These are like some next level like dark demon things. Like, I don't know. I'm scared. I don't like it. I hate it so much. Maybe one day we'll go, if I'm brave enough, we'll do a full thing on doppelgangers. Not today. I can't handle it. Not anytime soon. I can't. I'm not strong enough.
Like, what I want is it like you from like, right? Because you know it'd also be creepy if you like saw yourself from like 10 years ago when like you're younger or something too. Like, that would be creepy as well. Has anyone ever seen that?
Yes. Actually, not here. Not here. I'm gonna take a quick tangent and plug Jim Harold's Campfire real fast. Which he has callers call in and tell their own stories, and there's a really famous story on his where like, I don't know if I'm allowed to like detail it, but go listen to his podcast. It's cool. Someone called in and said that when they were like a little boy, they walked into their kitchen and saw a figure in a black hoodie in their kitchen making a sandwich. And then just like freaked out, like there's not supposed to be a person there, but then it was gone. And then years later, when he was a teenager, he was in his kitchen making a sandwich wearing a black hoodie, and he saw a little boy walk in the kitchen.
That makes me think of Haunting of Hill House.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah. That's what that makes me think of. That's creepy.
Okay. That's a whole time slippy, like...
Yeah, so you said you wanted to spook me. That's creepy.
Got it, okay. Got you. It was doppelgangers. If that's what it takes. I can't do doppelganger stories a lot. They freak me out. That's just weird on, like, I don't know, like a very real personal level. Like, it's not like some thing that, like, you've never met before. Yeah, like, it's like something, like, you're coming face to face with, like, but also coming face to face with yourself. Yeah. Yourself, or, like, someone who... Like you know like, and care about, but it's not them, which is like it's creepy to hear stories about, you know, like you see this dead girl from 100 years ago, but like it's creepier if you see someone still alive. Yeah, and there's a lot of stories about people seeing like doppelgangers like in their own homes and stuff. Like I hate it. It's so creepy. Okay, this is the part where I was getting freaked out. We're almost at the end, but this is the thing I couldn't handle last night. This is when Schitt's Creek came on.
Oh, okay. Now I know.
Okay. You know, for a while I was like, I'd kind of like to go to Waverly. I think it'd be fun. And now I've done this, and I'm like, I don't think I can handle it. I think I would just dissolve. Someone offered, they were like, if you ever want to come shoot any films at Waverly, I'm on the board. Like, let's go. And I was like, yeah, that'll be great. And now I'm like, no, I can't do it.
I'd be down to go. I just want to make sure like we're clean leaving. Like, can't bring like bad karma out of there. Like,
Yeah, like I don't feel like I'm a super open
yeah, I don't
person. Like I'm not like I don't know if I'm a believer or not, but like just there's that chance, and that chance is enough for me.
Yeah, like that story last time about the Bell Witch Cave, and people who take things from the Bell Witch Cave take bad home with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's the thing about visiting places that are like kind of unclean, is like I would have to just make sure like after leaving it that like, you know, like I was clean.
Yeah.
And wasn't like, taking something defiling home, like.
The fridge just came on and made a popping noise, and I swear my heart just stopped.
But that's good. That's how we know our food's cold.
You're talking about the Bell Witch, and like the other night I told you that I woke up and I could just hear something knocking and I didn't know where it was coming from. It was just a subtle and I flipped out. Like I was like, no, I'm not doing this. Because all I could think about was the Bell Witch.
I need to tell you about some things that I've seen and heard around here, but I guess that's a different episode for a different time.
Me? Here?
Yeah.
In our current...
I've told you.
Where we're going to stir some stuff up?
I've told you off.
I thought we had a nice, lovely apartment where nothing ever happened and it was all good and we all lived in harmony.
It's a very clean apartment.
Uh-huh.
You know, yeah, keep it clean.
Okay, maybe I don't want to know. Maybe this is an after we move out thing. I don't know. Oh, I don't know. Will depend on the day. Maybe not when we're talking about doppelgangers.
What if we did it in the daytime?
Maybe when there's, like, just as long as I know there's nothing, like, evil here.
Okay.
I don't like the look you're giving me.
Okay.
Is it you or you?
Am I what?
I don't...
Am I the thing in the apartment? Yes, I'm your husband. I live here. Nice to meet you. I don't know. I've told you about some of like the stuff that.
Yeah, you told me like little bits, but never in like a. I don't feel as weird here as I did in our last apartment. Like I feel pretty good here.
Mm-hmm.
Our last apartment, something weird was going on.
Yeah, that place didn't smell right.
No,
that place smelled bad, and I couldn't ever clean it enough to smell right.
No, like that's a whole other tangent. But like that. Ooh. Especially if we're talking about this stuff here, I don't want to like...
We can talk about other places. I've got stories from other places.
Okay, well we'll save that for another time, because I might cry.
Okay.
So this was a bad time to have a tangent, because we're at the end.
Actually, it's a perfect time to have a tangent, isn't it?
Not really, because I can't.
Going.
Had you all ramped up.
Going.
I had you all ramped up for this one, and now it's all gone. So the last entity that I'm going to talk about from the Waverly Hills Sanatorium is it's another pretty horrifying one, and no one's really sure what it is. If it falls in the category of shadow figure, if it was a human spirit, or if it's a demon.
Mm-hmm.
But there's not really anything else like it anywhere else. But it has been dubbed the Creeper. So it is a dark figure that crawls along the halls on all fours.
Ooh.
It crawls up the walls and onto the ceiling.
Ew.
The other spirits there seem to be scared of it, and it will try to warn. As you're smiling at me so much.
This is dark. I like
this is
one.
such an upsetting story.
This is I can visualize. This is messed up. I can visualize this in my head.
So the other entities in Waverly are scared of it, and they'll scatter, and they'll try to warn you. Like, you'll get EVPs trying to warn you that it is coming.
What?
Like the other things that live there are scared of it, and no one knows what this thing is.
It's dark. It's got 4 legs. This makes me think of like there's a dream I had a while back about spiders that were the size of dogs, and like they could run the speed of a dog down the street, but like climb up windows and doors and things. They were dark. That's kind of like what I'm picturing, except those have 8 legs. But like,
what is happening in your head? Oh.
Anyway.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, so that's the creeper, and that's really all the information that they have on it. Like there's pictures supposedly of it, but I don't know if those have been doctored. There's a lot of stories of people seeing something on the ceiling or scuttling away from them. I found one of a tour guide like herding a tour along and then turning around and thinking that there was like trash on the floor, and then all of a sudden this thing just started moving. Someone else saw one that was like, it said it was like black and white and like spider sized, or not spider sized, but like dog sized. I'm thinking about your dog spiders now, which I'm like, did you actually just see a dog? Because it's black and it's like white and black. I'm confused.
Well, it was a dream, but
no, like the person was saying that like they saw something that was like white and brown or something. I don't know. I just hate it.
Yeah, if the light cache is weird, it could be a dog. Like, especially, I guess, if someone's
there is the ghost dog. Maybe that guy saw the ghost dog.
Yeah, people are going up there at night. I mean, I'm sure I'm looking at the pictures, like, there's no windows. This place can easily be accessed by animals of any size and shape.
Okay, so there actually are windows now. So...
Oh, they put up glass along here?
Yes.
Oh,
so...
Okay.
In 2001, the property was purchased by Tina and Charlie Mattingly, who still own it today. So they're working on restoring it. They've added windows and they've cleaned it up, and they host tours. They do big Halloween events. They do light shows. Their goal, and all the proceeds are going to the restoration of the building, but their goal is to one day turn it into a bed and breakfast.
Like a haunted bed and breakfast, or are they going to try to clean the land?
I do not know.
Okay.
So they plan to do a bed and breakfast. They're going to do administrative offices on the first floor, and then a restaurant on the 5th floor. Which I think this building is too big to be classified as a bed and breakfast. Like, this would be a hotel.
Yeah.
Like, this is huge. You can't have a 400-room bed and breakfast. Like, that's not.
Yeah.
But also, I'm not eating breakfast there.
Yeah, that's called a hotel, and the breakfast always ends at something ridiculous like 7 a.m.
Come, relax. Get up by 6 or you will not get a bagel. So that is the Waverly Hills Sanatorium.
A cat. Seen our cat in a little bit. She get bored?
No, she took my skirt off the chair and made a bed out of it on the floor. So she's curled up in there asleep right now.
Aww.
It's not cute. She took my skirt.
Oh, bad ferret.
At least it's a black skirt. She's a black cat. So be careful with her. I mean, there will be a little blend in.
All right. My turn.
No.
So
I don't want to. I hate caves. This is horrifying.
I'm
so upset.
Yeah, I did kind of spoil what I was going to talk about last time. However, part of what I said I was going to talk about really, in terms of time and scale and, well, yeah, the amount of time I had to get the research done, as well as the amount of time that we would have to, record this and not have it last forever.
Sorry, I already talked forever about Waverly.
Well, that's okay. What I had would have gone on even longer, and that was the part where I was going to talk about the relationship between indigenous peoples and cave systems in North America.
That's a topic in itself.
Yeah, I did not have enough time to do that part justice.
That's something. That's a whole other episode to cover.
But I might actually spook you with some other parts.
Yes, if you're talking about a cave. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't like it. I'm scared.
Yep. So, I'll start my story in Kentucky.
Yeah, well, that's the theme, so I hope so.
Mm-hmm. South of Louisville on 65, you come to Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Very far south. 2.5 hours south of Louisville.
Yep. Closer to the Tennessee border than Louisville, but yes, it's one of America's many bowling greens. There are several spread across the country. However, this bowling green is noted for, among other things, being home to the National Corvette Museum.
Woo!
Where in 2012, a large sinkhole opened up inside of their display showroom.
No.
This was shortly before that we moved to Nashville, so it was still recent in the news when we got here, and luckily it didn't. No one was hurt in it. They do have security cam footage of it. 8 Corvettes, were severely damaged and they weren't able to be repaired.
8 Corvettes were swallowed by the earth and reclaimed.
There's something weirdly biblical about sinkholes, and I don't like it.
I hate it so much. There was a sinkhole in the news recently too, where one opened under some railroad tracks.
Ugh.
I hate it so much.
Right around the time that we first met, a sinkhole opened up on Wendover Avenue.
Fuck.
It was a big sinkhole too, and normally North Carolina doesn't have
I thought I was safe there.
But apparently
sweating. I hate it. I'm so upset.
Apparently there had been a water main that had been damaged for some time and had just been washing soil out underneath the road. Yes, this large sinkhole had just opened on this big thoroughfare.
No.
But yeah, I'm gonna have that be my introduction to talking about cave systems in Kentucky.
They still have those Corvettes on display.
They do, yes. You can see the damage and everything.
Because my dad went up there by himself to see it. When he came to visit us, he didn't want to go wedding dress shopping with me and my mom, so he went up to Bowling Green by himself to see the National Corvette Museum. I have only been there once to stand in the auditorium for a Comic-Con thing. You went with me.
I was there too, yeah.
Yeah, we met Brian Muir.
Yes.
Muir, who designed Darth Vader's helmet, among many, many other things.
Yes, I got to ride on a speeder bike, or I got to sit on a speeder bike.
We got to pretend to ride
taken.
a speeder bike.
Yes.
I'm going to put those pictures over this conversation so everyone can see us being dorky.
I'm sorry, correction. 3 of the Corvettes were able to be saved. 5 were unable to be saved.
I'm sorry, no, Satan himself took those. You may not have them back. You cannot reclaim them.
It does make me think of that story where the Israelites are in wandering in the wilderness and they try to rebel against Moses and the earth just swallows them on God's decree and
God's just like, these Corvettes are mine.
And I'm just like, what did these Corvettes do? What car commandment did they violate to deserve this fate? So yes, so that happened because Kentucky sits on a terrain called karst. And karst is it's a topography that contains rocks that are easily dissolvable in water. Frequently it's limestone. For example, you'll see this topography in Florida, which has a lot of limestone. It might be surprising to people who aren't from Kentucky to hear that Kentucky also has so much limestone, given that it does not border any oceans. It is very far inland.
So, I think Ethereum Paranormal Activity also, not Paranormal Activity, the concept, not the movie, that limestone is also a conductor of paranormal energy. I don't know.
Is it because of all the seashells?
Yes.
Is it seashell hauntings?
Yes, Kentucky is haunted by seashells. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, ancient sea creatures,
I'm just throwing out, maybe that's why Kentucky's haunted, is all the limestone, because that is a theory that limestone is a conductor of...
Yeah.
But yes, they're haunted by the ghost of crustaceans.
So, but these crustaceans in Kentucky, they are actually very, very old. Florida, its limestone was building up a little more recently. Kentucky's limestone was deposited during the Mississippian period. Now, for anyone who's outside of the United States, that is the Carboniferous Period. In the United States, the Carboniferous Period gets separated into the Mississippian Period and the Pennsylvanian Period. Those are two very specific terms, and it might lose some people, but the Mississippian Period, for a rough time scale, was about from 358 to 323 million years ago. For time scale, the dinosaurs were wiped out by the asteroid that struck 65 million years ago. So this was about 6 times that distance from us in time. Just to give us an idea of the vast time scales that we were dealing with. In fact, at the time Kentucky lay under a shallow sea, there were no dinosaurs yet. The Carboniferous Period was a time in Earth's history when amphibians were the primary land creatures. It was a very strange time. The reason it's called the Carboniferous Period is because most of the world's carbon deposits come from this time. Now, the reason for that is because, like I said, we're going so far back in time that various organisms that assist with decomposing plant material didn't actually fully exist at the time. Funguses, for example, that assist in the breakdown of plants, weren't as abundant back then. And so these early trees would grow, they'd die, they'd fall over, and they would just lay there. This was like when the trees first began were first really colonizing the land in large-scale forests that we'd kind of think of today. Now, let's do something interesting for the climate. It started off in a very warm period. Global temperatures at the time were about 68 degrees Fahrenheit on average mean world temperatures. For comparison today, they're about 57 degrees Fahrenheit in the 20th century. They are warmer now than they were in the 20th century because of our own climate change. But if you can consider that, they're about 10 degrees hotter on average worldwide. However, by the end of it, they had actually dropped cooler than today. They're probably about 54 degrees on average. This is because these trees trapped or released so much oxygen and trapped so much carbon that they lowered the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere and proceeded to cool the planet. The result of there being so much oxygen in the atmosphere was that this was a time when insects got huge.
Oh, God.
So I was saying earlier that amphibians were the dominant land species at the time. However, we have evidence of, this is slightly different, but today atmospheric oxygen is roughly 21% of the breathable air. At that time, it was as high as 35%. So there's much more oxygen because insects don't have a respiratory system because they just they have an exoskeleton, but they don't breathe in with lungs. That limits their size nowadays because that limits the amount of oxygen that can get to them for respiratory. God. Whereas at the time, because there was much more oxygen in the atmosphere, dragonflies at the time could get wingspans up to 28 inches, which is 70 centimeters. For example, so dragonflies could get a over 2-foot wingspan at the time.
I kind of like dragonflies, so like I don't know how to feel about that.
Dragonflies are pretty cool.
I have a feeling some of the others aren't quite as cute, though.
Yeah, just imagine giant insects. So, but
imagine giant insects.
Yeah.
Okay. That's casual.
Dog-sized spiders.
No, I don't want to. That's awful. This is the worst.
But yeah, I mean, the dragonflies were the size of, today's large birds, essentially.
Okay.
So the reason that Kentucky was under a shallow sea at the time was because the Appalachians were still undergoing a mountain building process as Pangea was still forming at the time. So at the time, the east coast of the United States would have been bordering Africa and Western Europe, and the inland part of the United States would have been a shallow sea or swampland, varying depending, because this time period lasted a very long time. the Carboniferous. Sometimes it's hard to wrap around just how big that these time scales are, but within this period, there would have been many ice ages. There would have been species grew, died out, but at the time, Kentucky was, for the most part, it was shallow seas or swampy lands, and that allowed for the deposits of seashells, which then compacted over time, formed limestone. Over top of this, later sandstone began to form, and the sandstone was obviously much harder than the limestone. It didn't allow for as much water penetration. So once water got a little bit under the sandstone, it could easily carve out large systems in the limestone underneath. So Kentucky today has over 5,000 caves.
God. I'm sorry, what?
Yes, Kentucky today has over 5,000 caves.
5,000 caves.
It's mostly known for Mammoth Cave, which is the largest cave system. However, there are over 5,000 caves in the state. Most of them are on the western edge of the Cumberland Plateau in Kentucky, which, we think of the part that's in Tennessee, but it does continue north into Kentucky as well. Yeah, most of those are in that part going towards eastern Kentucky. However, there's a large belt that roughly extends from a little bit southwest of Fort Knox, curving to a little east of Paducah. That's the region where that Mammoth Caves is in. So Mammoth Caves actually has a very interesting history that I didn't really know a whole lot about before that. I started looking into the caves.
It's funny because we took a tour there.
We took a tour there. And
it wasn't even the cheap tour.
And, they talked about some things. They talked about how, they talked about the formations. They talked about how deep that we were under time.
Talked about how, you get lost and die there.
Yeah.
Talked about that. That was great. It was fun while we were in the cave.
I will note here that many of these cave systems in Kentucky, they were sacred sites to the indigenous peoples that lived in the region. They have found human remains. They found mummified remains in these cave systems. I can do a discussion more on that later in the future. I'd like to get to that as to the religious symbolism that they had. But it seems like caves in Kentucky were they were utilized during the Archaic and early woodland periods. So they would have been used before the Mississippian Southwest Ceremonial Complex peoples that I talked about last time. No one's quite sure why. Obviously, the lack of written records, and they haven't found any reason that they would have stopped using them. I've been able to find out that's still an unanswered question at the moment. There's a legend that Mammoth Cave itself was discovered by a 10-year-old boy who was out hunting a bear, which is
casual. Okay.
Yeah, which is probably a made-up story. It was probably discovered
a fifth grader was hunting a bear.
Yeah, it was probably his dad who found the cave
and was just like, let me credit my 10-year-old with this.
I would like to point out that as of the date that we're reading this, the Wikipedia page, quote, this is highly unlikely because Johnny Dick was only 10 years old in 1797 and was unlikely to be out hunting bears at such a tender age. It was the words tender age on Wikipedia that really caught me, and I had to.
There ain't no way little Johnny Dick was out there hunting bears.
It's the words tender age appearing on Wikipedia.
His name was Johnny Dick.
So,
that kid was like running away from home with like his little knapsack or something. He was just like, "No, Mom, I was hunting bears."
During the War of 1812, it was.
You can't get past Johnny Dick hunting bears.
It was. Tender young Johnny Dick at 10 years old out hunting
Tender young Johnny Dick on his bear hunt.
Uh,
He doesn't even get like any royalties from like the ticket sales for all the tours. God, the Dick family's just getting screwed over.
So they're actually the Huchin family. I don't know why he was called Johnny Dick.
Oh, just so he's Johnny Dick just to Wikipedia.
That was just his nick. Apparently that was
his nickname was Dick.
Yeah.
At 10.
Yeah, that was his nickname. It was just
All
Johnny
right.
Dick.
All right.
Little bear hunter boy. But yeah, so it was used during the War of 1812 because there were saltpeter reserves at the time. They needed saltpeter to use with gunpowder. And there was a blockade, so they couldn't import it. So it was important at that time, and that's really when people first kind of started to discover the area and look more into it from the outside, and not just locals looking into it. They did find, this was also one that they found an indigenous mummy at the site. So then...
Sorry, what year is it?
I'm sorry, yes. This was just before spring of 1883 when the property was sold.
Okay.
When it was sold to Franklin Gorin, who was the first person to really operate Mammoth Cave as a tourist site. Stephen Bishop was one of his first tour guides. I like to point out that Franklin Gorin used slaves to give tours of the site. Ew. So Stephen Bishop was enslaved. He was actually half white, half black. However, at the time with the one drop rule, he was still considered black. He was one of the first people to make extensive maps of the area, though. He was quite an expert. Spelunker?
Spelunker?
Is that...
Spelunker? Spelunking.
Spelunking, yes.
Spelunker. Spelunkerizer. Spelunk.
Spelunkianite. He was good with the splunk. He was the first person to find the, quote, bottomless pit.
Oh, God.
Which, that was not on the tour that we saw, but yes, there's a bottomless pit.
I have questions, but I don't want to know.
And he is...
Caves gives me so much anxiety, I can't.
So, Stevens is quoted as saying it was grand, gloomy, and peculiar. Those were the words that he had for it.
Those are oddly calm for looking at something called the bottomless pit. Did he name it the bottomless pit?
That's a good question. As far as I'm aware, it was either him or it was Gorham who would have named it, but I suspect this would have been Stephen because Stephen was the one who was mapping it and actually making the discoveries at the time.
It's just Gorham... like, this looks like a bottomless pit. That's so peculiar. Okay.
Peculiar.
Strange.
So this is the real part, though, where Mammoth Caves actually ties into you and what that you were reading about earlier with tuberculosis and...
Oh no, we're talking about tuberculosis.
Yes.
Oh, my lungs just twinged.
We are circling back to tuberculosis, and this is what I learned about Mammoth Caves that really made me want to focus on this part, was a man named John Croghan.
I don't know.
Of Louisville. He bought the Mammoth Cave estate, including Bishop and the other slaves from the previous owner. And he ran a tuberculosis hospital in the cave.
Oh my God!
From 1842 to 1843 because he believed the vapors from underground would cure people of consumption.
No, John, no. That's a bit... No.
So he put them in a dark, damp, humid environment with no airflow.
Oh, and then we would... No. But that was like a...
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No, I mean, at least he wasn't removing like 8 of your ribs, but like, whoa.
Mm-hmm. His science was not good. He himself died of tuberculosis in 1849.
Damn it, John.
So yes, that was not good science, and he paid the price.
At least like he tried. Again, with tuberculosis, like, it would be interesting to do like a whole thing on tuberculosis. Tuberculosis is just wild. Like I like briefly like looked into it while I was, sorry, this is such a tangent, but while I was doing Waverly, I wanted to look a little bit more into tuberculosis, and I found that the first known like bacteria that could be classified as tuberculosis was found in a bison, a 17,000-year-old bison.
Huh.
And they have found tuberculosis bacteria in the lungs of mummies from like 4000 BC. Like, tuberculosis has been a problem nearly as long as humans have existed. And it took thousands of years to come up with a cure, and then even longer after that to come up with a preventative measure. So just today when people are like, it took too long to find the cure for this brand new thing, I'm just like, tuberculosis took thousands of years. Like, how long do you want it to take? How many people do you want it to kill?
This cave one as a cure really blows my mind, though, because even during the plagues in medieval Europe, they knew, and they thought that it was, bad air that was causing it. They thought it was miasma. But they thought that this came from damp, humid places like swamps and... yeah, any place that was dark, cold, and wet.
Yeah, which, like, the swampiness was the problem, like, in Louisville, which is why it was such a big problem in that area.
And that was why that if, patients were sick, like, when you read, like, novels from Victorian England, if someone was sick, they'd go to the south of France where it was warm and sunny and not rainy. So people have known for a long time that cool, damp, closed conditions aid the spread of disease. So it blows my mind that this person, for whatever the disease was, thought the solution was to put people in a cave together. So that one especially blows my mind. That goes against like thousands of years of just common knowledge on the spread of disease.
Damn it, John.
Yep. Well, eventually he got himself doing it. So.
It's just these people, like, take other, like, innocent people along with these little rides, promising they have the answer.
After it failed as a sanatorium, in 1859, the Louisville and Nashville Railroad opened its main lines between the cities, and that increased tourism to the Mammoth Cave areas. And this led to an influx of tourists and led to an event known as the Kentucky Cave Wars. Which is a wild name.
The Kentucky Cave War.
It's a wild name. I love this name.
I'm sure, like, it's not going to be as exciting. Like, I'm just picturing, like, people in Kentucky just, like, gearing up and, like, battling through the caves. But, like,
yeah,
it's probably, like, it's really boring and financial.
It's not like Hatfields and McCoys go underground. It's not that.
That's all I want, though. That's all I want right now.
No, this was other people who owned property around the area would put up signs to fool tourists claiming that they had the entrance to Mammoth Caves, and they would claim that Mammoth Caves was closed for renovations. You had to come visit their little smaller cave.
That's dangerous. I don't like that. I don't like it. I don't like it. Caves are dangerous. You just get stuck in places, and no, that's dangerous. I don't like it.
At the time, Mammoth Caves itself was still privately owned. It wasn't even a national park, so we're still talking about the 19th century at the time. So all these, I mean, it was...
these were all just private citizens, just like, come to my property, crawl underground, it'll be great.
Yeah, I've got, Stephen Bishop, this human that I own, who is going to take you on a tour of all these places he just found.
Cool.
Place called the Bottomless Pit.
Cool. Thanks, Kentucky. I mean, nowhere else was doing any better, but, like, thanks.
Yes, at the time it was still owned by, the Mammoth Caves itself was still owned by the Croghan family, even though John Croghan died of tuberculosis. In 1908, a German mining engineer heard about this while he was in New York. His name was Max Comper, and he had just graduated college, and he originally planned on spending 2 weeks at Mammoth Caves. However, ultimately ended up spending about half a year there. He worked with Stephen Bishop and produced the most accurate map that they had at the time of the cave system. However, the Krogan family was upset that someone else was coming in and exploring their cave, and to this date, no one can find any remains of this underground map. Poor Max went back to Germany and died in the trenches at the Battle of the Somme.
Oh.
So he had discovered it, well, not discovered. He visited the places that Stephen Bishop had shown him, and he drew the most accurate map that they had at the time. And then, but no one knows where this map is today, and he ended up being killed in the First World War. There were several attempts to turn it into a national park. Early on, there was very little success. There was legal reasons. For legal reasons, the federal government was not allowed to restore land on the area where farmsteads have been and return it to forestry. To get around this, they utilized the Civilian Conservation Corps, the CCC, to do tree planting. This was due to an agreement that they had with the Krogan heirs when that they acquired the property. Okay, so they're still making discoveries to this day. Recently, they've found that a lot more of the cave exists to the southeast of where the park is today, connecting to some of the privately owned caves in the area.
Privately owned caves.
Oh,
these are caves you can tour?
These are caves you can tour. I'm sure that they have to follow protocol. But yeah, you can...
I don't know how one owns a cave. The ground, like the earth owns the cave. You may not own the cave. I'm so upset by caves. People just go missing in caves. They get stuck in caves. Caves just like keep going down into the earth, and like where are they going? I hate caves. They're so like caves are just unsettling. And somehow in both episodes 1 and 2, we have talked about caves. Like we're a cave podcast. You've seen me have a panic attack just thinking about a cave. Mm-hmm. It's bad. Caves are weird. Stay out of them.
The ones that get me are, well, Mammoth Cave, yeah, that's well above sea level, but the ones that get me are the deepest caves on Earth.
Can't do it.
Deepest caves on Earth, and they have water draining down, but these caves are below sea level, and you're
Where
like...
the fuck is the water going? Where is the water going? I can't. This is what you can't do it.
It's not flowing out to the ocean.
Where is
it's just
it
going deep
just
into the bowels of the Earth.
Oh my god, I can't. I hate caves. Are so unsettling. And then there's like spiders and fish and stuff that just evolve in the cave to just not use any light. There's like,
and that was the part that I got lost on. I was actually about to talk about some of the animals that they found in Mammoth Caves and the caves in Kentucky. It is a very unique ecosystem, and these are creatures that are not found anywhere else on the Earth. Obviously, many types of bats that live in the cave, and bats are cute.
they're adorable.
Everyone loves bats.
It's Halloween. It's spooky season. It's bat time. They have a cute little face and little nose and make little squeaky noises.
There are cave crayfish and cave shrimp that live in the underground river. Oh, the river underneath is called the River Styx. That's the name of the river that flows through Mammoth Caves appropriately
Why would
enough.
they do that?
They thought they were so clever when they named this river. They thought they were just the cleverest people on Earth.
Is it tempting fate, or is it... I don't know if it's cheesy or if it's dark. I don't know. I just don't like it.
There are 2 types of eyeless cave fish. Not just fish with like the giant eye. These they lost the eyes altogether because what's the point?
Don't have. I get it.
So they can smell you coming.
Oh God. God. No.
In the fossils in the area, they have found many types of shark, though.
Excuse me? Mm-hmm. In a cave?
Yeah.
No.
In 2020, they reported the discovery. Scientists reported the discovery of, that's a Latin word, and I won't do it justice. It is a species of shark roughly the size of a modern great white shark they found fossil remains of.
No, there's just like a great white shark just in a cave.
It's hard to tell because this cave is also cutting through limestone deposits from when the area was a shallow sea. This may actually, I think this one may predate the cave.
Okay, well that's a little bit better because now I'm just picturing like that water below sea level and where it's going, and is it going to a great white shark? Like,
We do know much less about what's under the earth than we know about what's above it.
great. Whatever it is, it wants a Corvette.
It's seen humans driving around with Corvettes and wants one for itself.
It's like, you know what? I'm having my midlife crisis. I will take a Corvette. Thank you. I will take 8.
And I want to show you this picture.
Do I need to see it? No. No.
Of some of the largest
Oh my God.
insects that they have found inside of the caves. Here is, here we go, there's that crayfish we were talking about earlier.
Okay, looks like a little ghost shrimp. Okay, all right. Okay, ghost shrimp.
Oh, and it's got lots of, it's got a very specific type of cave cricket that lives there too, the camel cricket.
I thought camel crickets were just like everywhere, just...
They were...
Oh, God.
Yeah. Do you remember, you remember that house that
It
I
has
was
so
living
many
in
legs.
for
Yes.
a while?
Oh.
And,
Those were...
they were all over the basement in that house. It was, yeah.
Speaking of things trying to be reclaimed by the earth, that house was trying to be reclaimed. These spiders, like, those crickets are like another...
Well, as fate would have it, that
beast.
house got reclaimed by the North Carolina Department of Transportation. Now there's
not-
a road there.
That's not the same as the earth. That's where the next sinkhole's gonna be. They're just gonna be like, nope, I'm taking this road.
But yeah, so that kind of draws me full circuit to the large bugs that once existed in the Carboniferous period when the limestone was being laid down where the caves were, to the insects that still find this unique habitat, their only home on the earth today.
So that was your framing device, was insects?
Mm-hmm.
You spooked me with caves?
Mm-hmm.
And then, but like the real thing was insects?
Mm-hmm.
I hate it.
Mm-hmm.
I hate it. I don't want it. No, thank you.
I had to try to think up a new way, so I had to.
How dare you?
This is why it took me a little bit of extra time to kind of go a different route with things I was looking up.
Okay, well, I hate it, and I'm not going to sleep tonight because we've covered some of my least favorite things to exist / theoretically exist in this episode. This will be our last episode because I'm dead. It's been a great run. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to thank everyone for all the support over the years in that case.
That was a lot.
Anyway, do we talk about what's next, or last time I almost kind of spoiled it a little for you? Like, how do you want to do this going forward?
I think, I don't know. I guess we'll just kind of figure it out. See how it feels. I think we've decided. Our plan right now is for all of the first 3 episodes to come out at the same time, so it won't really be a secret.
I just heard something shifting in the other room.
That was our cat. That was our cat.
I thought our cat was.
She's not.
Okay, never mind. She
How
wasn't with us.
Dare you?
Okay.
You're not gonna get me
sorry.
like that. You're not gonna get me with your weird cheap like. No, absolutely not.
Well, anyway, as
clever.
we go into episode 3, I'm sure we'll find a good way to bridge the topic. So we'll see. We'll see.
So we bridge the gap between episode 2 and 3. Join us next time for episode 3, Bridges. In case you hadn't guessed. I can't promise it'll be any shorter than this
Wait, what?
episode.
Oh, it is about bridges.
It's not about bridges. Where'd you get that from? Oof, this one was a lot. I'm so stressed out. Ugh. You know, I kind of wanted to take the big, like, because we never have taken the tour of the big chamber at Mammoth Cave, and I
want to go back there for that.
Yeah, I wanted to do that, and now I don't, because now I know there's
pit.
the bottomless pit somewhere in there. I don't want to see it. I hate it. There's camel crickets. Camel crickets that were trying to reclaim a Corvette.
What are you running from, cat? What spooked you? Look how wide your eyes are. What spooked you?
So the cat just came scampering into the room. I think Peter's trying to scare me by implying that the cat ran away from something.
Should have come darting in here pretty quick. I'm sure the audio picked it up.
Probably. So it's okay. She just does that. She's a cat. She just runs up and down the hallway for fun. It's her hobby. Thankfully, it's not hunting bears.
Well, maybe we should go investigate and find out.
I'm not gonna enjoy doing this with you. You're gonna try and like scare me a lot.
Let's go investigate. Let's say goodbye and investigate. I
hate it. I hate it so much. Anyways, thank you, and we will see you for episode 3. This has been SpookiStory, the podcast.
We have a name now.
We do. We didn't have one in episode 1. We just pretended.
We'll edit it in. No one will know the difference. And then this conversation we're having right now will be for naught. For naught. Okay. I don't know what I'm doing with my laptop right now. We have an email now.
We do. We have an email. It is SpookiStoryPodcast@gmail.com, and you can email us. If you have a ghost story, I'd love to hear it, and I'll read it to Peter and see if we can scare him. Maybe he'll read some stories to me one day. I guess if we get enough, it'd be cool to do like episode with just listener stories. If we get, oh my god. The cat just screamed and reached her whole paw up the table, and I just saw a little claw just reach over the edge of the table, and I hate it. Anyways, thank you. This has been episode 2, and we will see you next time.